Welcome everybody to your show. Our guest has been a professional comedian for 25 years, has toured Europe and has performed at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. He is an inspirational speaker and is a sales expert and trainer for over 30 years experience. And he and his wife, Myrna Wilkins, are brokers and own multiple offices in the life insurance industry. I would like to welcome our special guest, my good friend, Dan Wilkins. How you doing today, Dan?
I'm fantastic as usual. Matter of fact, Andres, if I told you how good I was doing, I'd just be bragging. So
nice, excellent. Hey man, well, I really appreciate you being on here. I remember the first time that we met, it was at a Toastmasters meeting. Do you remember?
I remember we were on the board together.
Yeah, that was a great experience to be able to be with a comedian like yourself. Tell us a little bit before comedy and a little bit before the business. What were you doing before that?
Well, prior to that, obviously, I was a child. So I give you a little background. I left home when I was 9 years old, grew up in group homes, foster homes, that sort of thing, homeless, that sort of stuff. Quite the street guy. Did a little bit of time in jail, and then I went to the Army to escape that lifestyle. While I was in the Army, that's when I discovered comedy. I've always been in love with comedy and making people laugh, being the sort of scapegoat guy. And a buddy of mine said, hey, if you're going to keep telling jokes, you need to be in this talent show come Friday. So Martin Luther King birthday, went to a talent show, won first place, and kind of comedy's been my hook ever since.
Very nice. Awesome. That's a great story. So when you got started with comedy, did you see yourself doing anything with it, or was it just like a hobby?
In the beginning I did. I really wanted to be the road warrior and get out there and become a success in comedy. But like in a lot of things in life, we often tell ourselves no. We're used to hearing no our entire lives. So kept telling ourselves no, kept saying, you got to feed the family, you got to be responsible, you got to go out and work a 9 to 5, those types of things. And before you know it, you wake up and you're 48 years old and you're an insurance salesman.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with the no's. That I think somebody said that there's a stat that says by the time we're 18, like we've been told no like 180,000 times or something. I don't know if that's like exaggerating, but something like that.
I'm not sure if it's exaggerating, especially if you count the times you tell yourself no.
True.
The richest place in the world is not a country or a bank, it's the cemetery. But that's for all the unwritten books, all the undone shows, all the unwritten songs, and all the undated girls are found, right? Because we we fight it and we tell ourselves no, and then one day we're just gone. And then what was it all for? Because we told ourselves no. So we get, it's the fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real, but we believe that fear. And we say, what if we can't do it? But I tell your listeners today, what if you can? What if it works?
False evidence appearing real. It's not real. It's the unknown. I'm a true believer in that. In order to get past your fears, what do you recommend to people do?
Well, people get stuck on the obstacles. They get stuck on the challenges, and they say, how does one overcome obstacles? And really my thought process is obstacles are not to be overcome, they're to be embraced. Crevices to get over to the next challenge. And your greatness lies just beyond your fears. You have to overcome those fears and go on to the other side. Remember, bravery is not the absence of fear, but the ability to drive on in spite of the fear. So you have to push to the other side, and that's where the greatness lies. We get stuck in our comfort zone, but the comfort zone is where mediocrity lives. So what I suggest people do is surround themselves with people who push them far beyond their comfort zone so that they can be pushed and challenged. People make the mistake of going out to network. I say they should network while they're out. 90% of the people who will help you achieve greatness haven't even crossed your path yet. I'll give you an example. Last week we went to a meeting and I ran into you. Had I stayed in my comfort zone, we wouldn't have ran back into each other, and we'd just be stalking each other on Facebook still. So we have to get out there and get out of your comfort zone and say hello to somebody, because you don't know what they can offer, and you don't know what network they're exposed to. So it's important. That's how you get over your fear, is by doing it. You know, you may remember in high school, there was a really pretty girl, you wanted to talk to her, but you waited 30 seconds and the window was gone, right? So when you wait, you immediately start to talk yourself out of stuff. So don't wait, just do it, right? So great insurance guy and legend in our industry. His name is Art Williams. He created a company called A.L. Williams that turned into Primerica. Is a great leader. And he has a wonderful speech on YouTube called Just Do It. Just do it, do it, and do it, and do it until you're done. So that's how you get over fear. You just do it.
I remember that speech when he says, but Art, what is this? What is that? Just do it. Just do it, and you do it, and you do it.
But how do I do it? Just do it. Just do it. Hey, Art, I'm going to be the next big thing in your company. That's fine and dandy. Just do it. I really like Art. He's great. I'm not a part of that organization, but he is a legend in our industry, so I really look up to him. So he's a lot like me. He doesn't consider himself a motivational speaker. I consider myself an inspirational speaker, because I can't motivate you. I can only inspire you to be motivated. So that's why I like it.
Love that. You're absolutely right. The people are looking for you, but if you don't look for them, they will never find you.
If you don't surround yourself with the right people, the wrong people will come in by default. So it's going to happen. So you need to find the right people. Your net worth is going to be determined by your network. Nice. We are the sum of our top 5 friends. So if you're the smartest person in your group, you need to find a new group.
You need to find a new group. Yep, absolutely. I agree, man. So tell us about who have been some of your mentors that you say that have helped you in your life.
I'll tell you, going back to 1992, you remember that year, right? 1992, I got out of the military, and I was married at the time. By the way, I recently celebrated 30 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Well, don't get too excited for me. It's span 3 wide. So 1992, I was married, and I was staying at my mother-in-law's house, and a guy came over, and he was helping her with something, and I'm sitting there to protect my mother-in-law because I don't know what this sales guy is doing. And his name was Ron Davis. And at the end of the appointment, he hadn't really spoke to me at all. But at the very end, he looked at me, and this was in North Carolina, so he had a very strong accent. He says, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I just got out of the military. I'm looking for an opportunity." He said, "Well, do you have a tie?" And I said, "Well, of course I do. I'm a grown man. I have a tie, right?" He said, "Well, I'm going to come around here tomorrow at 2 and pick you up." And Ron showed up in a 1992 Corvette Stingray. And I got inside the car, and on the dashboard, a gold plate that said, "Custom made for Ron Davis." So right away, I was like, I don't know what this guy does, but I want to do it, whatever it is. Yeah. And he took me around for the day, took me on appointments. At the end of the day, I kind of figured out he was an insurance salesman, life insurance, actually. And he asked me, "How much money do you think I made today?" I said, "I don't know, a couple of $100. He said, $4,000. Would you like to learn how to do this?" I said, "Yes, sir. Where do I sign up?" So that was with Primerica back in those days. And but Ron taught me really everything that gave me a base of learning how to sell. And even though I had been a salesman growing up, I was the youngest of 8 kids, pretty much only because once you reach perfection, there's no sense keep trying. If I was a firstborn, I'd have been an only child. But growing up in the east side of Detroit, we had to go out and we had to hustle and we had to find, food, money. And so since about the age of 8, I'd already been out there doing some of those things. I just didn't know how to convert that into professional sales. And Ron Davis took me on as a mentor. He was my very first mentor in business and sales and really in life. And he was the first person who told me that that I was endowed with the seeds of greatness, and he expected greatness from me. So that was my first mentor, and one of the biggest influences on me professionally. Now, on the other side of it, the comedy thing, some of my influences, of course, they weren't my mentors, but early on was Red Fox, Rudy Ray Moore, some of those comedians from the 70s. Yeah. And so that's, of course, I was a blue comedian for 15 years. In the last 10 years, I've been a clean comedy, doing more Christian comedy and that sort of thing. But those were some of my early influences in comedy. So.
Okay. Now, I do recall that you had a nickname for your comedian name. What was it again?
Well, years ago, it was Dirty Dan, but now it's just Dan Wilkins. Yeah. So, round about the time my daughter was born, who also, by the way, was doing comedy from the age of 4 to the time she was about 8 or 9. She's gonna be 11 now. She played the Rialto Theater there in Tucson. She played the Alva Amphitheater. So she was nominated Entertainer of the Year in 2014. So she's also a big influence on my comedy as well, because working with her, I didn't want to see and hear some of the things that I had to say. I already had to sequester her from the other comedians when they were on stage.
So that's great, man, that your daughter, you're pretty much guiding her in the direction of self-belief, having like a high self-esteem, which is something that many of our youth, our generation that's coming up, need. So what advice do you have for anybody that's a parent that's trying to raise their kids, how to help them out with giving them advice on how to believe in themselves or just going for their dreams?
Well, the first thing is pick your battles, right? Don't fight about everything, because when you fight about everything, as a parent, we have to win. I can't let my kid win. If we get into a battle, she can't win. I have to come out victorious. So I have to choose those battles, and whether or not I want to fight over her wearing mismatched socks to school may not be an important battle for me to fight, when later on it has to be that you got to get your homework done, you got to turn it in, these types of things. But the second thing is encourage the young people to become entrepreneurs. Encourage them to be entrepreneurs, because they're being taught to be an employee. Teach your children to become entrepreneurs. Teach them to have an entrepreneurial spirit, and how to raise their self-confidence, whether it's having a lemonade stand or a dog walking business, because it allows them to understand how they can go out and make their own money. See, money is not to be earned, it's to be made. So the ideal is that the schools are teaching our children to be employees, and the employee mindset is already a low self-esteem. You're going to go out and sell an hour of your time for $15, $20, or $30 an hour. It doesn't really make sense. Think of it, the last time you asked a doctor how much they made an hour. It wouldn't make sense. Think of a guy like Kevin Hart, who made $84 million last year. Wow. Even if he worked 80 hours a week, he still made $18,000 an hour. It wouldn't make sense to ask him how much he made an hour, because the only way to sell an hour is by sell it by bulk. And when you buy in bulk, you get a discount. When you're selling your hours, 40 of them in bulk like that, you got to sell it for a discount. That's why you're getting $15 or $20 for it, rather than getting thousands of dollars for that hour. So what I try to teach my kids is, if you spend $100, you can go back out and earn that $100 right away. You drink all the coffee in your cup, you can replace it with more coffee. But once you've gotten rid of that hour, you can't ever get it back. So it's the most precious asset we have, and we're giving it away. So my daughter, again, who's going to turn 11 years old in a week or two, at 9 years old, created her own business called Decorate Your Cake. And she sells the concept to parents who have small children who are going to have a birthday party. You're going to have 12 kids over. She sends them 12 naked cupcakes with a kit, and each kid gets to decorate their own cake. Now here's the genius of her ideal. She pushes the labor off onto her clients, onto her customers. And she came up with the entire concept herself because we're teaching entrepreneurial mindset. So when you think about the way school looked prior to the Industrial Revolution, kids went to school in one room. Everybody was in one room. They were there 2 or 3 hours. They learned to read and write, do math, and then they went back to work at the family business. What does school look like today? You get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. You get a break at 10. You get a lunch at noon. You get a break at 2. You go home at 4. What does that sound like? Job. Right? Just over broke. So they're conditioning your child to have a low self-esteem, and they're testing them against things that may not be their actual skill set. Imagine if we test a fish on its ability to climb a tree. It wouldn't score very well, will it? But that's what we're doing to our children. We're not testing them, or we're not challenging them in their area of strength. One of the things that I remember early on in my career was somebody told me, identify your top 10 weaknesses and only work on those and forget about your strength. It was the worst advice I had ever gotten, because if I would have identified my top 10 strengths and improved those and hired out to my weaknesses, I'd be further ahead today. Wow. We can hire people who can do our weaknesses. If I'm not an organized person, I can hire an assistant who is. But I can't hire somebody who can sell as good as I can. So I need to work on my strength. And by the way, if you become 1% better in every area, then you're going to win. When a horse wins a race by a nose, it wins 10 times as much as the second place winner, but it's not 10 times better. It was only better by a nose. You improve every area of your life, your strengths, by 1%, and you out-earn your competition by 10 times.
Very nice. Well said, man. Love what you're saying, man. I'm with you 100%. But everything that you said is amazing. Now, for the person who is stuck at a job that they hate, that they want to get out of, what advice would you give them to take that first step to start pursuing their
Find a way to become an entrepreneur part-time. Find a way to do something. Find a business, a product, a service. Find something that allow you to do it part-time until that earns you more money part-time than your full-time income is bringing in. And then you can make that transition. But don't make the mistake of linear thinking. If you make $10 an hour, that means you make $400 a week. You can't earn $400 to replace that, because you also get time off, you get vacation time, you get maybe medical. So you have to replace all of that. So you probably need to make $700 or $800 a week as an entrepreneur to do that. But here's the thing: if you found yourself bad in high school, right? You got bad grades, you didn't like it. Now you're finding yourself job hopping, probably because you're an entrepreneur at heart. You're born an entrepreneur. And when you take a fish out of water, it can't survive very long because it's not its natural environment. And think about the last time you went swimming. You didn't stay in the water for days or weeks because it wasn't your natural environment. You had to get out of that environment eventually. So if you're job hopping, you can't stand the regimen of the job and things like that, it's probably because you're not an employee, you're an entrepreneur, and you need to go out and find something. By the way, don't be afraid of network marketing. It's just a business model. I heard somebody ask me the other day, is this one of those, what do you call them, triangles, pyramids? Like, no, sir, a pyramid is what you find in Giza, right? This is a business model. And the company that everybody works for, don't get worried about that. Network marketing is one of the greatest business models that will allow you to enter into the business entrepreneurial world at a very low cost, as well as being able to do it part-time while you're working your full-time gig.
Nice. Thanks, man. Final question. What impact do you want to make on the world?
So that's a great question, right? On the world, I'm not so sure, right? I think that if we impact our current situation and our local situation, and everybody does that, that will have an impact on the world. What I do, if you ask my daughters, they're both, 10 and 6, you ask them, why is daddy doing this thing called entrepreneurism? By the way, an entrepreneur is somebody who's willing to work 100 hours a week for himself, so he doesn't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else. So if you ask them, who is daddy doing this for? They'll say, not for me, but for my children. I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing it for my daughters. I'm doing it for their children. I'm talking about legacy, generational wealth. And matter of fact, it's a biblical principle that a good man will leave an inheritance for his children's children. And so if I'm going to change the direction of an entire family's legacy, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort. I'm going to miss out on a lot of things, but I'm going to do it for generations to come. So that's the impact by setting up. There's not a lot I can do to impact the world personally, but if I set up the next 2 or 3 generations, then somebody in my lineage will do something that will have a great impact on the world. Because think about, if you know your grandfather, you know your great-grandfather, you know your great-great-grandfather. Most people don't know who those people are because they didn't create any legacy in the family. One thing I can guarantee you, great-great-great-great-grandchildren of Abraham Lincoln knows who he is because he created generational legacy. So that's what I want to do. I want to impact my lineage in the future.
That's great, man. Well said, man. I love what you just said. It's true. Leave a legacy for your family, and eventually you'll create entrepreneurs that will create more entrepreneurs that can definitely make an impact in the world. Thank you so much, Dan. Well, Dan, I really appreciate you being on the show, and I love all the stories that you shared with us. And guys, stay tuned for the next Your Show, where we'll be having another great guest. And thank you guys for your time. You guys have a wonderful day. Peace.
Have a great night. Good night.